of objections for the proposed special assessment district related to the York Timber Ridge Subdivision in York Township. Going through the agenda, number one, we're going to go through some housekeeping. Emily Kaiser will be doing that. I'll go through introductions. We'll talk about the definition of a special assessment district, an SAD. We'll talk about the SAD process. Michelle will be reviewing the project, and that's the work scope and estimated cost, information like that. We'll have really what's very important part of this public hearing is the public comment and the question and answer period. And then the last thing we'll do is there's a prepared statement that I'll read into the record that's part of the public act that governs a special assessment district. So Emily, do you want to give us some housekeeping?
Absolutely, yep. So the audio and video of this meeting is being recorded. A link to the video recording and an electronic copy of the meeting minutes will be available starting tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to wait for him to wheel through. Let me start over. The audio and video of this meeting is being recorded. A link to the video recording and an electronic copy of the meeting minutes will be available starting tomorrow afternoon by request. If you're interested, please contact Aaron, the hearing examiner. His contact information will be provided later in the presentation, but also he's got cards on the table here if you're here in person. If you are joining us virtually from your computer or smartphone, the chat feature on this Zoom meeting is available. Questions asked in chat will be answered during the Q&A period in tonight's meeting. General comments can be made in chat, and if they are, they'll be read aloud and included in the meeting minutes. In addition, if you're experiencing technical issues with audio or video during the meeting, please submit a comment in the chat and I will help you troubleshoot. There are multiple ways to make public comment during today's meeting, whether you're joining us in person or virtually. When we get to that part of the agenda, we will rotate between those who are in person and those who are virtual. If you're joining us virtually, we'll ask you to virtually raise your hand at that time, and I'll provide more instructions when we get to that point. Any additional written comments that you would like included in the report for the board should be submitted by Friday, March 4th, 2022. A link is available in the chat. I'll put it in there just a second to an online form where you can submit your comments. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you, Emily. So again, by way of introduction, I'm Aaron Burkholtz. I'm a senior project manager here at the Washtenaw County Road Commission. With me tonight is Michelle Ford. She's one of the engineers that works with me in the design and construction section here. And Matt McDonnell is here. He's our county highway engineer and our director of engineering. Emily promised that she would try to refer to me as Aaron during this meeting, but I'm also known as Burke. I carry on that tradition from my dad. During the time he worked at Elrow Steel for many, many years, he was known as Burke. And I carry that on in my working career. So if you slip up Emily, that's fine. It's not a big deal. We will go forward with our definition of an SAD. So by definition, a special assessment district is a designated area where a majority of the property owners agree to allow a government agency to levy a special property tax in exchange for a specific service such as the improvement of public roads. The Road Commission's most recent experience in working through the SAD process was for an improvement of subdivision roads in 2016. And the Road Commission can provide additional information regarding SADs. There's a link on our website. I think, Emily, we have some brochures here that are available for those that are in person. But again, that provides a greater level of detail in regards to a special assessment district. So what does all that mean? Essentially, an SAD is a property tax on a specific group for a specific improvement. There's a couple different options with a special assessment district. There's a township administered SAD, and that's governed by Public Act 188 of 1954. Public Act 188 actually provides townships with a much broader authority for establishing an SAD for infrastructure improvements. It doesn't necessarily have to be roads. It can be other infrastructure that the township can seek to improve through an SAD. And then there's the Road Commission administered SAD. That's governed by Public Act 246 of 1931. Upon receiving a valid petition, which we did in the case of the York Timber Ridge Subdivision, the Road Commission were legally bound to follow the process that's detailed by that public act. So really, once that petition is submitted and it's verified, we're compelled by law to follow through on this special assessment district process. Why an SAD? There certainly are many subdivision roads in Washtenaw County that are in need of repair. And unfortunately, there is not enough funding to go around. That's the reality of this situation. Only local funds can be used on subdivision roads. Subdivision roads, by definition, are local county roads, those that have been accepted into the county road network, like those that lie within the York Timber Ridge subdivision. And the county road millage, which the Road Commission greatly appreciates, and those residents in York Timber Ridge, you all pay that county road millage, and our agency greatly appreciates that, but it is not designated for subdivision streets. That money is not allocated for the purpose of improving those types of roads. We certainly have more information regarding road funding that further delve into the types of funding that are available, but the focus of this meeting is the petitioned SAD process. That's what we'd like to focus on at this meeting. But again, there is a great deal of information that we have available on our website. There's some brochures here tonight for those in attendance that talk about the different types of road funding. The York Timber Ridge SAD petition, to get into some specifics for this SAD, the petition was submitted to the Road Commission. It was signed by 66% of the parcel owners that are within the York Timber Ridge subdivision. And it was more than 51% of the lineal frontage. And so that's actually, that reference is out of the Public Act. And when we talk about lineal frontage, we mean the property that fronts along the streets that are going to be improved. And it's interesting, you can imagine that the houses that are on the cul-de-sacs don't have very much lineal frontage on the cul-de-sac because of the shape of the property there. So when we looked at lineal frontage, the petition received was from 55% of the lineal frontage. But again, that still exceeds that required by the Public Act. Basically, we have to have more than 50% for the petition and the SAD process to move forward. So the long process then begins. There's quite a few steps involved in an SAD. The first step that I just referenced was the submittal of a petition by the property owners that hope to see an improvement in their streets. There's an acknowledgement of the petition by the Road Commission board. And so the specific name for our board is the Washtenaw County Board of County Road Commissioners. And so if you hear me tonight reference the board, that is the board I'm speaking of. Our board is made up of 5 members, and our 5-member board is appointed by the county board. So again, technically their name is the Washtenaw County Board of County Road Commissioners. Our board did acknowledge the petition at their meeting on August 17th of last year. And at that point, the board instructs staff to review the validity of the petition. And so we engaged York Township at that point, and we requested their assistance in reviewing the validity of the petition. And when we look at the validity of it, we're looking for those that signed their name to it. It has to be all of the property owners that are part of the tax record for a given parcel. So if there's 2 owners, like a husband and wife, for instance, that are listed in the tax record, they both have to sign the petition. No one can be left out. And also, there can be no taxes that have remained unpaid. They can't be in arrears, or their vote per se doesn't count on the petition. So York Township did assist us with that. They found that the petition was valid. They verified that for us. And so we had satisfied step 2 in the SAD process. The next step, number 3, is the initial determination of necessity. And again, that occurred, the Road Commission Board took that action on October 5th of last year, and that instructed the engineering staff here at the Road Commission to begin preliminary engineering. That's also known as design engineering. So we began evaluating the roads that are within the subdivision. We looked at their condition. We took cores of the pavement so we could verify the thickness of the existing asphalt pavement on the streets out there. We started to do a preliminary layout and scoping of the work that could be performed, and we started to put together an estimate of the various items that would be needed to perform the improvements that we're recommending. One thing I'll note here is when we bid a road project, we don't bid a road project as a lump sum. We don't say to a contractor, hey, here's 1.5 miles of subdivision streets. What's your best price to do that? Instead, what we do is we break the work down into discrete items and estimated quantities. And we do the same when we actually go to construction of a project. We track those items and quantities, and we only pay the contractor for the work that's performed. So an example would be as hot mix asphalt. We refer to asphalt as HMA. We set HMA up as a discrete item of a specific type of asphalt to be used, and then we set that up by the ton. And so as they're performing the work in the field, we keep track of the number of tons of asphalt that are placed, and then we pay them based on their unit price bid for that work. The next step on number 4 is the first order of determination. So that essentially is an action by the board to hold a hearing of objections. So the board took that action, that first order of determination, on February 1st of this year, and they set this meeting tonight by that action that occurred on February 1st, and we arrive at the hearing of objections. And at this meeting, as I mentioned previous during the agenda, staff will provide scope, estimated costs, and payment options, and property owners have the opportunity to state objections or provide comment or ask questions related to the project. Once we've completed this hearing of objections tonight, the next step is the final order of determination. That final order of determination, that action by the board, has to occur within 30 days of this hearing of objections, this meeting, and that would instruct staff to proceed with bidding. So at that point, the board would be instructing staff to move forward onto the next steps that are involved, and that would be the advertisement for construction bids. So the bidders that are eligible to bid projects through the Road Commission, including the improvements in York Timber Ridge, must be MDOT pre-qualified. And then we have what's referred to as a bid letting. That's another word for a bid opening. And we would do that electronically. We would open bids, and we would look at the lowest responsive bidder. We would receive their bids to ensure that there's not an imbalanced bid, that the contractor hasn't somehow, I guess I'll say, worked the numbers in their favor. And we would review the bids and determine the lowest qualified, the lowest responsive bidder at that point. Once we've completed that bid opening, we would have an assessment roll. And so again, that's another action by the Road Commission Board. And they would pass a resolution to hold a public hearing to confirm the assessment roll. And the assessment roll is where they get into talking about, based on those construction bids and the unit price bidding that's been provided by that contractor, what the final estimated cost is, and therefore, based on that cost, what the amount per parcel is going to be at that point. So they set that during the assessment. So in step 10, the board will confirm or change the final assessment roll. They look at the parcels that are included within the boundaries of the SAD. And again, they look at the overall cost, the estimated cost of the project, and decide how much each property owner is going to be taxed for the improvement. Step 11 is the sale of bonds or notes. So again, this money that would be used for the purposes of improving the York Timber Ridge Subdivision streets is not taken out of the road commission funds. This money would be through bonds or notes, and the costs would be the cost to be covered by that would include administration, would include design, would include construction, and then there's a contingency in there for unseen challenges that may arise during construction. And again, the design portion of the project, we've already incurred some costs there. We've started the design process as required by the SAD process. So there have already been some charges per se, based on the staff time that was spent, based on some of the scoping of the site, the investigation of the site to determine what the best means is to improve the roads out there. And then step 12, we finally arrive in step 12 at construction. And as I said when we started, this is a very long, drawn out process, but that's where the rubber would actually hit the road per se, and the contractor would arrive on site and perform the improvements that have been proposed. So I mentioned the boundaries in regards to the assessment role. So the boundaries of this project, the scope of this project, include Ridgeline Drive, Ridgeline Court, Timber Ridge Drive, Timber Ridge Court, Green Valley Drive, and Meadow Ridge Drive. And so that totals approximately 1.55 miles of local county subdivision roads. Who is included? So it would be those properties that have a driveway approach on an improved road. So someone that has an approach on one of the roads I just listed. And also all those receiving a benefit from the improvements. Because some of the properties that are out here do not necessarily have a drive approach onto one of the roads I just read. And it includes at this point, based on the SAD boundaries that have been indicated and that were part of the petition, it includes 68 parcels and as indicated on the screen. So Michelle, if you would go into the preliminary engineering, design engineering that we worked on, starting off with the existing conditions.
Okay, so once we received the petition, we went out and started to take a look at your roads. So we took some pictures, and we can see there is a lot of distress in these roads. And they have, the board accepted these roads into, they were accepted by the board in 1999. Sorry, 1999. I was thinking, wait, that's a long time ago. So we would expect usually 15 to 20 years to get out of these. So we're at 22, 23 years now. So they are pretty much at the end of their service life. There has been some maintenance done. You see, especially in the top middle picture, there's some crack sealing that was done. That's a very good preventative measure. That's something that helps to prolong the life of the road. But we feel that we are beyond that now. And the roads definitely do need improvement. So then we think about, well, what should we do? So you saw some crack sealing has been done. We're past that. It would just be a big black crack seal thing. There's a possibility of seal coat, which you've seen probably on other roads where we put a chip seal and then maybe a fog seal on top of it. So you'd put some emulsion down, some stone of some sort, and then we can fog over it. That can be a good, useful tool, and we use it on many of our roads. However, it does not address the underlying structural problems with the roadway. And it's better used on roads that are in good or fair condition rather than ones that are at the end of their service life. So we are past that one as well. You can also mill and resurface. So milling would be they go out there with a mill machine and actually take off some of the asphalt. They could take off some or all of the asphalt. So when we went out and we did cores to find out how much is actually out there, there's approximately 4 inches of asphalt out there currently. We could take just 2 inches off, but then once again, we still have some underlying structural issues. We think that it's beyond that. We're better off taking a full 4 inches off. Another technique to do that is to pulverize and resurface, where we go in, we bring a big machine, they pulverize the existing asphalt, and then they kind of lay it down and they use that as a base course and put new asphalt on top of it. The issue with that is because you're keeping the existing asphalt and putting more on top, it fluffs up the road. We always say it's fluffing the road. You guys, many of the homes in this area have concrete driveways. And if we were to raise the level of the road, your driveway, your current driveway would no longer meet that existing grade. So we would have to probably go into those driveways, pull some of that concrete out, reset it. That's an expense that we don't think is really necessary. Most of those driveways are in very good condition. There's no reason to start ripping out parts of your driveway. Some of them have pavers along the side, you know, all sorts of things. So what we have chosen, we feel is the best option for these roadways is the mill and resurface with the 4 inches of asphalt. We accomplish getting rid of all the asphalt, but your final result is going to be at the current grade of the road. So it should not affect the driveways that you have. So there would be a big milling machine that comes out. Many times on the roadway, if you see a milled road, you'll see it kind of looks like a wavy surface a little bit. That's if some of the asphalt is left on. You do 1.5 inches or a 2 inch. We're going to take this all the way down to the base course. When we did our cores and then we looked at the types of distresses that we're seeing in the asphalt, we think the base course is in pretty good condition, and we're not planning to replace that or to add more. So that will be a cost saving measure for you. But we do want to get rid of all the asphalt all the way down, and then we'd come in and pave that 4 inches of asphalt in 2 lifts, as we call it. So in 2 inches, they would do a base course, and then they'll come back up and do a top course with the second 2 inches. We also are proposing 2-foot aggregate shoulders. And the reason we would do that is because it adds stability to the edge of that asphalt. If you don't put those in, you increase your risk of cracking along the side of that asphalt, especially if you have heavy vehicles, for instance, delivery trucks or your garbage trucks that come in. They can be very heavy, and this would help to support that asphalt pavement. But we are not proposing to narrow the road because we think what's out there is a good width of the road. So these would go 2 feet beyond the current boundary of the road. It should not affect mailboxes. You should be able to keep your mailboxes where they are, but right now there is grass all the way up to the side, and it would pull that back a little bit. There are also a few miscellaneous items. There is a picture of the structure here we found on Timber Ridge Drive. We weren't really sure what that was, and we went in. It's actually a drainage structure. It's like a little beehive drainage structure that you would see kind of at the bottom of a swale to collect stormwater. Well, the inlet filter, which is like a fabric bag that they put on during construction to help keep sediment out during construction, that inlet filter was never removed. And so that structure has never worked quite properly. So we are going to go in, remove those stones around it. I'm not sure who put the stones there, but they will be removed. The inlet filter will be removed, and that structure should then, function as designed and should work better. We'll also do turf restoration. So this is planting grass seed and fertilizer, and then like a little mulch blanket. You see the straw mulch blankets on top of things. That'll be for any areas we disturb. Like for instance, around this inlet structure, you would see, we'll plant some grass around there. And then if there happen to be any other disturbed areas because of the work, then we'll go ahead and plant some grass seed, but we would expect that to be quite minimal. And just for your information, as we go on with construction, mail delivery, trash pickup will continue as normal. And you would have access to your homes throughout. Even when we take that 4 inches of asphalt out, the contractor will be required to put in a little ramp per se, so you can get in and out of your driveway without having the big bump on your vehicle. And typically the time between when they mill and when they pave is a fairly short period of time, within a day or two, weather permitting. And so it's not like that would be like that for super long amounts of time. So what are we not including? We are not proposing any driveway work, and that includes driveway culverts. Most of the driveways out there, because you have pretty deep ditches for your stormwater, most of them have driveway culverts. The drainage there seems to be functioning pretty well. We don't feel that there is a need to go in and fix those. No curb and gutter. Currently, the only curb and gutter is as you come off of Judd Road in those entrances. We would only do work to that if they were somehow damaged during construction. We will repair anything that happens to be damaged, but we don't necessarily foresee that. Our contractors are very experienced in removing asphalt and paving around curb and gutter and not hurting it. But if there is some damage, we'll fix that. Otherwise, there will be no new curb and gutter proposed for the project. And we're also not planning any road culvert work. Now, this is the big culverts that go underneath the road from side to side. One thing we did during the preliminary engineering stage is we hired a contractor to go out and televise and inspect them and clean out those culverts. And they are all concrete, which is very good because they have quite a long life to them. And we found them to be in very good condition. And there was no reason that we would need to replace them. We did do that because if you're going to remove all the asphalt and work on the road, if you had culverts that were not in good condition, that's the time to replace them. And so we checked, and good for you. We don't should not be having to replace any of those culverts. And as I said, this is for the engineering geeks of the room. If they like to look at drawings, this is just our very simple cross section of the road, showing that it's just a normal road. It has a crown in the middle, and so it drains off to the sides. 2% is typical. We're proposing 4 inches of HMA, like Aaron said, that's hot mix asphalt. LVSP is low volume super pave. That's a type of asphalt that we have used in the past on low volume subdivision roads and has performed very well. And we think it's a good option for this use. And let's see. Okay, so why are we here? You want to know how much this is all going to cost. So what we've done is we, as Aaron said, we figure out the quantities for all of this, and we do unit prices. And we pick unit prices based on our recent experience, similar type projects, similar quantities, so that you know it's going to be, you get more economy of scale with a larger project. Things are a little bit more expensive with the smaller, that kind of thing. We took all of that into consideration. Our estimate of the construction is $663,500. For your information, if you're curious, the vast majority of that is for the hot mix asphalt. I did the calculations before we came in today, and 76% of it was for the HMA. If you add in the milling that we need, it goes up to about 85% of the price is between just the mill and the asphalt. All the other incidental things make up the difference. The total estimated cost And that goes into what Aaron was saying. That includes design costs, the construction. There's going to be inspection during the construction to make sure that these things are, the contractor is installing things per our requirements. There'll be some materials testing. They'll make sure that the asphalt is put down with the correct density, those types of things to make sure that the work is done to our standards. There's also some administrative costs in doing the bonds and a little bit of contingency thrown in there. And our estimate of that is $746,500. So if we were to divide this per parcel with our 68 parcel, that comes out to approximately $11,000. Now, that is not necessarily the final cost because the actual cost will not be known until after bidding and the bond sale. So our hope would be that that would be the high end, but that's the cost we have right now. Aaron?
Yeah, and the other thing that you had noted, Michelle, here is that's an approximate cost per parcel, that it does not include interest over time.
That's correct.
Yeah.
If you were to finance it over time, that's right.
So the next steps involved would be the final order of determination. I mentioned that previous when I was going step by step through the SAD process. So staff will make a recommendation to the board based on public input. Certainly the information we would provide to our board would be the meeting minutes that we have from this meeting, the public comment that's provided, and then after that final order of determination by the board, letters will be sent to impacted parcel owners. So again, there will be a mailing at that point saying that the board has taken the step of the final order of determination for the SAD. That's important because there is an opportunity for a petition of reconsideration to be filed within 10 calendar days of the mailing of that final order of determination. So that must be signed by owners of more than 50% of the lineal frontage. And if that would occur, if there was a petition for reconsideration that comes to the road commission, then the board would schedule another public meeting based on that action by the homeowners. Again, should that occur, should there be a petition of reconsideration filed, the board would schedule another public hearing and mailings would be sent out to the affected parcels, again, informing those parcel owners and parties of interest of that additional public hearing. If no petition of reconsideration is received, the project moves forward. And again, that is assuming that the board at that final order of determination, the board's determination is, yes, this project should move forward. If there is no petition of reconsideration, the project moves forward. And it moves forward to the advertisement and the bid opening. And so that's the point at which you could say the boat leaves the dock or the train leaves the station. That's where really there's a point of no return there, because there's been no petition of reconsideration. So at that point, the intention is to go to advertisement, go to bid opening, identify who the low bid contractor is, the qualified low bid contractor, and then move up forward with the confirmation of the assessment roll. So again, there's a meeting, a public hearing that's necessary for the confirmation of the assessment roll. A mailing will be sent again. So you kind of see the repetitiveness of this process. So please, if you receive a letter from the Washtenaw County Road Commission, do not simply throw it in recycle. It's an important letter that you should open and read. Again, the letter would indicate when the meeting is going to be held by the board for the assessment roll. That's another opportunity for property owners to come to that meeting, and they can challenge their participation in the SAD, or they can challenge their contribution amount at that point. And the board makes a final decision in that regard at that setting of the assessment roll. Once that step is completed, Then again, we would finally go into construction. We expect that the construction could occur here in the summer or fall of this year of 2022. So again, we've arrived at a very important part of the meeting. We could say the most important part is allowing time for those in attendance here in person and those that are attending virtually to provide public comment, to have a question and answer period. So Emily, do you want to give another brief overview of how that will work virtually?
Yes, thanks, Aaron. So like Aaron said, we'll now open it up to Q&A and public comment. We know, like Aaron said earlier, that there may be general questions about road funding. And since we're trying to keep today's hearing focused on the SAD, we have provided some printed informational handouts with more information in the back of the room here. And there's also a link available in the chat. I'll put a few more in as we go here if you're joining us virtually. Since this is a hybrid meeting with both in-person and virtual attendees, we will take turns between those attending in person and those attending virtually. For virtual attendees, we ask that you virtually raise your hand now. If you're viewing the meeting on your computer, first make sure to click Join Audio. You can then raise your hand by clicking the Participants or Reactions button at the bottom of your screen, and then the Raise Hand button. If you dialed into the meeting from your touch-tone phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. I will unmute participants with raised hands one at a time. I will announce your username or the last 4 digits of your phone number when it is your turn to speak. If your question is answered before you're called on, you can lower your hand by clicking the lower hand button or by dialing *9. For in-person attendees, I'll notify the room when it is the in-person attendee's turn. We will take comments on a first-come, first-served basis. For all attendees, we ask you to share your name and address before beginning your comments. Out of respect of everyone's time, we'd appreciate it if you could keep your comments to approximately 3 minutes or less. Thank you. Lastly, and then I promise we will get started, after we get through all the comments and questions, I'll hand it back to Aaron, who will go through his prepared statement to close out the meeting. Okay, so with that, we do have a few raised hands. Let's start with a virtual raised hand, and then we can go to someone in person if they want to make a comment. So our first raised hand is Lynn and Andy Gaskell. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi.
Hi, go ahead.
We live at 193 Judd Road, parcel 2, and our driveway touches Ridgeline Drive, despite having a Judd Road mailing address. Our home predates the subdivision, and our original driveway was most likely destroyed so that these $600,000 homes behind us could even be built. That's neither here nor there. But we're not part of this subdivision, and we're not part of their HOA. And we would like to put on record that we strongly and vehemently object to being included in this special assessment district. And we do not feel that having the road replaced would benefit us directly at all. It would in fact be a detriment to us. And the proposed course of action would put us back in this position within roughly 2 years. We use about 300 feet of Ridgeline Drive, and the portion of road that we do use is perfectly fine. It's not aesthetically pleasing to look at, but it's both functional and intact. There are no potholes, it's not crumbling, and it causes no damage to vehicles. I can't speak for the rest of the subdivision because I don't go back there. But the amount of road we use is not proportional to what it would cost us to have our taxes raised in order to pay for the subdivision's roads. We're a 1-income family and our taxes are in escrow, and raising our taxes will directly raise our monthly mortgage payment. And if this occurs, we might not be able to live here any longer. And this is the area we've always wanted to be in. So having to potentially sell our home because we have to pay for new roads in a subdivision that we aren't part of is of no benefit to us in any way. For these reasons, we strongly object to being included in this special assessment. And we don't feel that we should have to incur the cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. All right, so and now we're to the in-person turn. Is there anybody in person that would like to make a comment? And if you do, please go to the podium. I'll unmute that.
Hello.
My name is Tom Starkey, 10430 Ridgeline Drive. I'm also one of the members of the road committee for the HOA. We did our own research as well. We come to the same conclusion you guys have. The only objection that I have is the south end of Meadow Ridge. We think that curbing on the inside corner on the west edge would be a good idea, because next time you're out there, take a look. Everybody cuts that corner, and it really breaks down, you know, that edge. The other thing is, you don't know it right now, but once they start getting in there used to be a 3-foot limestone edge along the whole subdivision. It's grown over the years.
Okay.
Once that gets replaced, we have ponding on the bottom of Meadow Ridge and ponding on Timber Ridge Drive. And I suspect it's because there's nowhere for the water to go because of all the grass. Will that also help that situation? Otherwise, we were considering maybe some sort of culvert action down those two ends.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to mention. Thank you for your time.
I would say that it's not uncommon for subdivisions to request intersections to have curve. Michelle pointed out that as presented, it's not putting any curve at any of the intersections, but if there's a desire, it certainly can be added, but it will increase the cost.
Okay. I also noticed Oak Park, which was the most recent SAD reconstruction. You guys didn't choose to do limestone with them. They went grass right to the edge of the road. Did that cut down costs at all? And what was the reason that you had mentioned earlier, Michelle, was the cracking or deterioration, you know, with the grass being right there if a heavy truck was parked in that spot? I mean, if we have the option of going with grass instead to cut costs, would it be a detriment, or would it be not that different?
It's not our recommendation, because we've done it both ways. We present a cost that would be including the aggregate shoulder, because that's what we recommend. What can happen is, Michelle indicated in her presentation, is those garbage trucks, especially this time of year, will run the edge and it will break off. I guarantee it will break off and crack. And after residents are taxing themselves for a significant amount of money, it would be a shame to have that happen right after construction, and all of a sudden that edge cracking occurs. Those cracks can freeze thaw cycle, you know, and expand.
Okay.
So that's would not be our recommendation, to remove the aggregate shoulders. But as you point out, there are SADs out there. Oak Park Estates, Lone Oak and Lodi Township, Oak Park Estates in Saline, I believe.
Mhm.
Those are the most recent examples. They elected to remove the aggregate shoulder and just do the asphalt work. But unfortunately, if you go over to Lone Oak, you'll see the edge cracking. Yep.
All right. Thank you.
And just, Tom, to give you, we appreciate that input. We'll certainly go take a look. And looking at the estimate that we put together, based on the estimated number of tons that we would use to put that shoulder material on, it's somewhere in the realm of like $25,000. So there is a cost incurred. But as Michelle mentioned earlier, when you look at the biggest part of the costs here are the hot mix
HMA.
asphalt and milling. You know, those two alone are like 85% of the cost. So, yeah.
And you want to protect that major investment, right?
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have 2 questions in chat. So we'll go to chat and then we'll go to another virtual and then go back into the room. We'll do a kind of rotating here. So Lynn asked via chat is, how will the cost to the parcels be distributed? And how much would it potentially raise our taxes? I believe we addressed that, but do you want to talk about that again one more time, Michelle? In the per parcel?
Right,
Yeah.
so,
Back to that slide.
I can, yeah.
That'd be great.
so there are different options of how to apportion the cost. We have chosen to do it per parcel. They also, I believe, we are allowed to do it for lineal frontage. Once again, we didn't think that was a good option here. You have really a misrepresentation with, you have some cul-de-sacs, you have some on a corner. So you've got 35 feet compared to 500 feet. And it, so we chose to go per parcel. It would be, like we said, our approximate estimates is an estimate, is about $11,000 and that's if you were to pay it lump sum all at one time. Many people choose to do over a 10-year period to finance it, and there is an interest rate applied to that, and we are not sure exactly what that would be. That's all done in the bonding process.
Mhm.
Does that answer the question, Emma?
I believe so. Yeah. Let us know if it doesn't via chat. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, and Emily, I'll say, and it's part of, again, part of this hearing, this hearing of objections. I'll be reading a prepared statement at the end of the meeting. And to reiterate what Michelle said, our board has elected to set the repayment of bonds at 10 years. So again, property owners have the option of either paying the lump sum upfront to save on that interest, or to pay it over a 10-year period, and it would be added to your property taxes. And as Michelle mentioned, we've set this up so that it's evenly divided by parcel. It's based on parcel, not based on lineal frontage.
Thank you. Okay, we do have a, let's see, Sarah has virtually raised her hand. Sarah, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Yes, hi, thank you. This is Sarah Reefrock. I live at 10321 Timber Ridge Drive. I was just curious if you could please comment, as the road work is being done, how do residents deal with the timing getting to and from their home? And then the second part of that is, our concrete driveway is the age of the roads, and so it would make sense for us to make repairs. I'm just wondering, do you have any recommendations? Is this something, if we were to replace or do concrete work, should we wait until you're done or try to be complete before? And would you have any local resources to reach out to make sure we're not disrupting in any way and coordinating with what you're planning?
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, so Sarah, thank you for your questions. In regards to access during the construction, we would inform the residents of Timber Ridge ahead of time. One of the convenient things in this particular project is that there's only 2 ways to get in and out of Timber Ridge. And so you may have seen that we set up, we call them portable changeable message signs. They're the electronic message boards that we put out there about a week ago, informing residents of this meeting. The same would occur ahead of construction. We would put the signs out there about a week to 2 weeks ahead of the construction schedule, so the residents would know the contractor was getting ready to show up. We would send out an email and even take the step of sending out a letter. We're a little hesitant to send the letter out because construction is fluid. And again, I've worked in construction for, I hate to admit it, almost 25 years. And people always want us to set a date and say, that's the date we're going to be there. Well, that sounds good, but Mother Nature plays a factor, and not even necessarily Mother Nature on this particular project. If Mother Nature influences another project the contractor's working on, it changes the date that they're going to show up on this project. So, but certainly we would do the best that we can to inform residents ahead of time. We're getting ready to start the project. The milling of the roads is a fairly straightforward process. Again, that mill is going to remove the 4 inches as it tracks along the road. It's loaded by conveyor into a truck and it's trucked off the site. So that usually goes fairly smooth. The only thing that mill operators hate to see is manhole covers. And I don't think we have to worry about that here. But that, if you want a mill operator to lose his mind on a project, sometimes manhole covers get paved over. And so you don't realize there's a manhole cover there and they hit it with the mill machine. And that's a very bad day for the mill operator. But again, the milling typically is very straightforward. It moves right along. We would have the contractor, after the milling, they would put some of the milled material at the end of each drive approach so that there's a little ramp there, because again, there's going to be a 4-inch drop at the end of the drive approach. So we would have them ramp that so that the residents can continue to get in and out. And then the next step would be the asphalt paving. And the asphalt paving would be done in 2 courses. We refer to them as courses, or, you know, more commonly, we would call it a layer of asphalt. I guess that's a more straightforward way to explain it. So we'd have a 2-inch layer that would go down first, and then they would come back and put another 2-inch layer down. And that would take more than a single day. That's going to take a few days to accomplish. And in that process, residents, the contractor would have traffic regulators, AKA flaggers on site to help people get in and out. And the only time that someone would really be held up would be if they've just pulled the top mat, that final course of asphalt through your drive approach, and you need to get in or out. They're going to stop you for a few minutes because they don't want you to ruin the new asphalt that they just put down, and you can end up rutting it if you drive across it. But asphalt sets up very quickly, especially if you compare it to concrete. Asphalt is not like concrete. Asphalt sets up quickly, so there might be a few minutes delay there. But by and large, we would maintain access for each of the residents that needs to come in and out, and for things like deliveries, for garbage pickup. You know, we would work with the residents to understand what day of the week garbage pickup is, so that then we can inform the contractor, hey, on this given day, expect to see a garbage truck. And then you asked a question, Sarah, in regards to the concrete drive approaches. And again, one of the reasons that we identified mill and HMA paving as the preferred scope was so we wouldn't have to get into drive approach repair or replacement, because a lot of the driveway approaches in there look to be in very good shape. If you did desire to have your drive approach repaired or replaced, I would recommend you do that after we do our project, because then if you like replace the end of your driveway at the road, they can match that driveway right up to the new pavement surface.
And the new pavement surface will match, the goal is to match to the existing ones as best we can, but the best way would be.
As
Okay.
best we can. Again, if the drive approach would have some imperfections in it, that can be tough to meet, but by and large, they try to meet that drive approach.
Right. I also will do a shameless plug here, since she asked about notification. We do put out a weekly roadwork schedule every year, or every week rather, on our website, which is wcroads.org. And so this would be listed on that ahead of that construction. And then you can subscribe to receive email updates. You can subscribe to receive that weekly roadwork schedule via email on our website. And you can also subscribe to receive township specific updates. So if you just wanted to know about road work, and we have a lot of it planned in York Township this year, there's maps back here if you're interested, but you can subscribe to receive those updates on our website too. I'll put a link in the chat. We did have a comment come in from Tom on chat that I wanted to make sure we addressed. So Tom says, our subdivision has been proactive in crack sealing, and we want to take care of the new pavement once installed when crack sealing is needed. We've had difficulty getting MDOT certified contractors to do the crack sealing due to the small size of our subdivision. Can we get a waiver in the future to have a non-MDOT certified contractor perform the crack sealing?
Yeah,
Matt?
we can definitely consider that.
Okay, and that would go through the permits department?
Yep.
Okay.
Waivers generally come to me, so I hear you loud and clear.
And that's Matt McDonnell, our Director of Engineering, talking right now. So, okay, so let's see. I think it's time for somebody in person. If there's anybody in the room here that would like to make comment.
Hello, I wrote a statement. My name is Brad Potts. I live at 10370 Ridgeline Court and have so for 3 going on 4 years. I want to start off by saying that I am in favor for the road repair and replacement. What I am not in favor of is how it's being handled and paid for. We currently pay almost $9,000 a year in property taxes. For my family, this works out to be $27,000 so far since the day we've moved in. What I would like to know is what % of my taxes goes towards secondary and subdivision roads. From what I understand, there is several $1 million in a York Township account, of which a portion of that is paid into by the residents of Timber Ridge Subdivision. So I would like to ask, what portion of this account is our money? Meaning, why is the tax money that we pay not being allocated or spent on the needs of the citizens and communities that we pay into that account? Of my $9,000 a year, not 1,000 or 100 or even one single dollar is going towards the roads that I pay taxes for. Is that correct? The ideal situation would be for the county and the township to fund this repair project, or at the very least, split it 3 ways between the county, the township, and the tax-paying residents. There are more questions that need to be answered with this project. What about yearly maintenance of the roads once the initial repairs are done? Who will fund that? Who will do the seal, or who will seal the cracks? Will the county regulate who can be used for said maintenance but doesn't want to pay for it? Why do we pay taxes that are supposed to go towards roads but are not being used for what this road is in need of? This doesn't make any sense to me. My other question is, regardless of when the roads get repaired, when are the ditches and retention ponds going to be addressed? The retention pond in my yard at times will reach 6 to 8 feet in depth. This causes flooding and water to come into my basement. When inquiring about this during the most recent flooding, I was told by the township representative that the ditches and the ponds are the HOA's responsibility. I called the county and got the same answer. The HOA is now saying that it is the homeowner's responsibility to maintain the ditches and the retention ponds. If I were to fill in the retention pond in my yard, the entire neighborhood would begin to flood. However, that choice is being placed on me to make. I don't understand why it is my responsibility to maintain and pay for the neighborhood's drain issues. My responsibility should not be able to make these decisions based on the entire neighborhood simply because I purchased a home. None of these were discussed prior to our home purchase either. We received the HOA bylaws just like everyone else, and it wasn't spelled out that we would be responsible for these decisions and for the neighborhood's drainage issues or the previously mentioned financial obligations. And I have one other question that we brought up about the 2 foot of stone. I know for a fact my sprinkler heads are about 12 inches off the edge of the road, because 2 years ago, a county snowplow came in and ripped out 7 of my sprinkler heads. And I had to pay $1,100 to fix out of my pocket because the county wouldn't reimburse or help out with the situation. So when you add 2 feet of stone, who's going to repair all these sprinkler heads? Is that another cost of the homeowners that you're not considering? Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Thanks.
Michelle, do you want to speak to the sprinklers, or do you want me to?
Why don't you?
Okay, so in regards to the sprinklers, this is not uncommon that we run into situations, particularly along subdivision streets, where homeowners have placed sprinklers relatively close to the edge of the existing pavement. In this case, what we would intend to do is to inform the homeowners that the contractor has set a schedule for the work to be performed, and then leave it to individual homeowners to move those sprinkler heads outside of that 2 foot area that we're going to place new aggregate shoulder on. Because there may be some homeowners that do not have sprinklers that near, and then there would be others that do. And so to include that in the SAD as part of the overall project costs, it's not fairly equating the need, if you will. Because again, there are probably some properties, I'm assuming, in this subdivision that may not have sprinklers that close to the road. If the other option for a homeowner would be if they're close to that 2 foot offset from the edge of the existing pavement, they could certainly mark the sprinkler head, because sprinklers are not part of any utility misdig. The contractors, unless they're clearly visible, the contractor does not know where they're at. And the size of equipment that they use, it can be tough to spot sprinkler heads in the lawn. So again, that would be the intention in regards to the sprinklers out there.
Matt, do you want to talk briefly on the road funding questions?
Yes.
Okay.
We get that one a lot. Certainly in Michigan, there's a lot of talk about road funding. Unfortunately, the reality is the amount of funding that we receive for local roads really just provides enough for winter maintenance and emergency issues. Really, that's what it amounts to. I know property owners pay a lot of property taxes. The road commission in general doesn't receive any funding from property taxes, with the exception of the countywide road millage. That's a $0.50 with 20% going to non-motorized, and then 80% of that $0.50 comes to the road commission, and we invest that into the primary system. We have a very good website that talks about the county road millage and also road funding in general. But the property taxes, what happens with that? Certainly, you look on your tax bill, you'll see a lot of community college, school districts, property taxes for your township. We don't have anything to do with those and don't have any jurisdiction for how that money gets spent. Certainly, we have a relationship with York Township. They do invest into the road system, but ultimately the typical practice in York Township, I will say, we've done a lot of special assessment districts. If we're improving subdivision roads where the people that benefit are the ones that live there, that's the model they have chosen to go with as far as investment of township funds into the road network. They will do collector roadways, local collector roadways, and have even invested some into the primary system as well. So I will leave it to York Township to answer those questions, but I'll just give you that feedback and background. I'll also speak to subdivisions in general, developed in the period of time which your home owners association was constructed, did not require the establishment of a drainage district whereby the stormwater management system would be under the control of the drain commissioner. That's the typical practice now. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case for this one, I don't believe. And that's why the responsibility ends up being on the homeowners association to maintain the stormwater management system outside the right of way. So that is indeed the case, I believe. As far as the ditches go and anything in the road right of way, that is certainly something that we are responsible for and can address. And if there are needs that one of the gentlemen pointed out, we'll certainly look at it. But for the most part, we look at it and see a pretty good functioning stormwater management system as far as what's in the road right away. As Michelle indicated, we went and televised the storm sewers, saw a picture of that video, and they were in very good shape. Concrete pipes generally last over 50 years. And so you're only halfway to your service life on those pipes. So we're not going to necessarily do much in the way of addressing any culvert needs, but there may be some ditching that we can definitely look at if we see there's a problem. And this is a great time of year to assess drainage issues.
I just want to add one other thing about road funding is we have heard a lot about the federal infrastructure bill. And transformational is a word that is thrown around a lot, especially in an election year. Unfortunately, that federal funding will never come to local roads like this. Local subdivision roads are not eligible for federal funding. So while that federal money is appreciated and we will definitely spend it and can use it, it's not coming to local subdivision roads like these roads.
Right, and I'll add on to that, not only the federal monies don't come to these local roads, even the state of Michigan is doing a lot of bonding. The governor is very proactive in looking to fix the roadways. Unfortunately, those roadway fixes are more state highways and freeways. That does not really trickle down to the local system either. So.
Okay, I think it's time for a virtual attendee. So Steve, you have your hand raised. You should be able to unmute now.
Yeah, hi, this is Steve Delighten. Can you hear me okay?
We can. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, great. I live at 10250 Ridgeline Drive. So I just have a couple comments and maybe one question. First of all, I commiserate with understand the situation for the first speakers there living up on the corner there. And it's a pretty poor situation that they've been put in. I'm disappointed in the road commission. I'm an original owner here. Built my house in early 1999, moved in August 1999. So I've lived here as long as the neighborhood's been here, raised my children here. Part of the pitch when we bought here from the developer was that the roads are owned by Washtenaw County and that Washtenaw County will maintain the roads. So that was one of the pitches. My wife and I were looking at other properties in other places. But this one, the pitch was, hey, these roads are owned by the county, they'll take care of them. So it's very disappointing to watch the road commission walk away from what I thought was their responsibility. I understand the money situation. I hear it again and again whenever I listen to what the government's saying, whenever I drive on US 23 and dodge the potholes. I get it, but it's really disappointing to get hit in the side of the head like that. The other thing I'm disappointed is I expect to move in the next 4 years. My kids are in college. I don't expect to see any long-term benefit from this road improvement. I don't expect it to help my resale value one bit. $11,000 would be better put into a new kitchen than it would be into the road. And so it's, again, a little bit disappointing. You know, I drive down a dirt road every day that's either feels like I'm driving through a milkshake or if somebody's bombed it. So from my perspective, the roads in the neighborhood aren't in that bad shape when I drive down Judd or Warner on a daily basis. So those are just general comments. One question I have is, I hear people keep talking about this in the comment meeting about this being a tax. It's really not being treated like a tax. It's really just they're taking the cost and laying it out against each homeowner. If this was a millage tax, it would be assigned on the basis of the taxable value of the property. So I'm wondering, why aren't we treating this like a millage tax and assigning the cost based off of the taxable value of the property instead of just uniformly distributing it? That's my question. I appreciate the time that the Road Commission has taken to put this presentation together and walk us through the plan. I think the plan sounds good. To think the funding, how we're going to fund it, I think the straight universe distribution is probably unfair. And I'm not just really just happy with having to put the money out so unexpectedly.
Thank you, Steve.
I can take on the funding question. Certainly it's prescribed by the law. It's as simple as that. Ultimately, you could do it the two ways that were described by the lineal foot. We don't think that's very fair that someone with 35 feet of frontage in a cul-de-sac would be assessed very little, whereas certainly someone with a 500 feet on the corner lot would be assessed a lot. And they use the same number of trips in and out of their house, generally speaking. So I think the per parcel is the fairest way as prescribed under the law. And certainly we are not here to advocate for doing the project. We are not saying that it must be done. We're doing this at the will of the subdivision that circulated a petition. If we receive a petition to stop this as described, we'll stop. Maybe it's not time yet. And that is an option for the HOA. So we are not here saying we're moving ahead with this. The law, even though it was an older law, it forces public engagement. It forces the will of the folks in the district to say yay or nay. So that's one of the reasons why we're here tonight. So I appreciate everyone's comments, I really do.
And Matt, when you're talking about what is prescribed by the law, when he was asking about a taxable value, is assessing this based on taxable value, that's just not an option with the law.
Not under the statute for the road commission.
Right.
To administer an SAD, that is not there.
Okay. This question comes from chat and it's along the same lines. So this is from John and he says, so we get an opportunity to change our minds, but the decision has to be made before we get the final quote. What if actual costs come in 50% higher, for example?
So great question. So if we are off by 10%, we get to do this all over again. So we have another hearing of objection. So
10% high.
10% high. Yeah, right. So for 10% low, then everybody's happy.
Just to be clear.
Yeah, exactly. Not everybody. What I found with SADs, you will not please everyone. It's 60-40, one way or the other, generally speaking. Just observation. So if the costs come in excess of 10%, we have to do the hearing of objections all over again. So it's a kind of forces you to re-engage and doesn't assess automatically those costs. So what you heard tonight was roughly $750,000 round numbers. 68 parcels, $11,000 per parcel. And then if one of the parcels is excluded, that 11,000 gets redistributed to the remainder. So.
I'm going to break my own rules and go to one more in chat because it's a related. Dawn had asked, was this process initiated by the county or the subdivision? And I just want to clarify, we did answer that. Matt just talked about that, but this was initiated by the subdivision. And then that triggers a process by law that the road commission has to follow. And so that's where we're at with this public hearing. First of at least one other one.
Right. And we have had special assessment districts stopped. Just to be clear, it has happened before. Doesn't generally, but it has happened.
Okay, so I think it is time for another in-person participant. Is there anybody else that would like to make public comment?
Hello, I'm Jason McGovern, live at 51 Green Valley. A couple statements and a couple questions, some clarifying questions. And it's really, for the record for folks, when we're talking about funding, I don't know as much as you, but I do serve on York Townships as a trustee. So I know a bit where the money goes, and it's surprising. We send 30% to the county. We get to keep 8%, and most of that's used for police and fire. And you mentioned that that we've even, as a township, participated in some of the primary roads. And when we do that, that takes a little bit that we've got to do something with Judd. So if we're going to spend $750,000 on this, there's a couple of questions. One, we still have to go to, I'll leave it to the colorful explanation or description that our previous person mentioned on Judd Road. And that's a hard pill to swallow, I think, that kind of investment. And again, if the township's having to participate in primary, the reality is there's not enough dollars there. I thought I saw in the PowerPoint that part of the cost was included maintenance along with administration and design and the like. But then at the end, it was the total construction, $746, but there was no maintenance. And I've heard the question asked a couple of times. I haven't got a real clear answer on who is responsible for the maintenance so that we get another 20, 25 years out of this.
So the cost that I quoted did not include maintenance. It was only construction and then the administration and the design and the inspection and things like that of the actual construction project. So longer term maintenance is the responsibility.
So the term maintenance can be confusing. So maintenance as we define it would be winter maintenance, snow plowing, pothole patching. Anything that would extend the service life is above normal maintenance. So preventative maintenance by nature would be above normal maintenance. So preventative maintenance treatment like crack seal, a chip seal, those are all things that the road commission wouldn't fund. So that's.
And so we don't want to put good money after bad. Who is responsible for that so that they last another 20, 25 years?
So we have had homeowners associations go ahead and pay for crack sealing because that's a very cost-effective way of sealing up those cracks, getting the water to where it needs to go, not into the pavements. And that is probably the most common preventative maintenance. Chip sealing does get done in some townships. In general, I don't think York Township has.
Chip sealing on local roads.
On local roads, and sometimes there are desires to do chip sealing on subdivision roads. The chip seal is a lot like what our parking lot is out there. It's a aggregate that emulsion gets put down, the aggregates get put down, the chips, and then we do a fog seal after it. It's a good way to extend the service life, but there's a lot of people that don't like it in a subdivision setting, whether it's like they like to rollerblade or walk or what have you. It's not the most friendly thing for life of a road in a subdivision, I'll say. But it works great on collectors and primary roads at extending the service life. But again, all those are preventive maintenance, extending the service life. Good treatments, but not covered by the road commission in our general maintenance.
And with the HOA covering that cost, that would provide a little relief, I suppose, to the non-HOA members that I also represent, and I am sympathetic to that. And I love the idea of the SCV being a more fair spread of the investment. I mean, it doesn't help me, but I think it would help. I think that's a fairer way. Is there anything that we have at our disposal to look into that, to more fairly distribute the cost?
Are you talking excluding parcels that aren't in the HOA?
Well, just using the SCV value to distribute the overall cost.
The taxable value.
Taxable value to distribute so that how properties are worth more or paying more.
Right. That's not, again, that's not prescribed in the law for road commissions to administer.
Okay.
It's not an option.
And last thing, did I hear, because this is a number I didn't know, about 80% of the money that that the county receives from the township is used for roads? Or
Yeah,
did I-
20% goes to non-motorized.
You're talking about the millage.
That's the county-wide road millage.
Yeah.
$500,000 for 4 years. That's why when people say property taxes don't go to roads, I want to qualify that statement and point out that the county millage, $500,000, does go to the countywide millage on your winter taxes, and that 80% of it comes to the road commission and gets invested into York Township.
Okay,
Roadways. 20% goes to non-motorized.
Got it.
Countywide.
okay.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
One other shameless plug for our website. The millage, when we went to voters in August of 2020, asking for renewal, we asked for a very specific set of projects to be funded by the roads and non-motorized millage. You can see that map on our website. It's also, we've got a printed map here, and I'll put a link in the chat, but we have a printed map here at the back, and the projects that have X's over them are funded by the millage. So there's some big ones coming up in York Township, like Platte Road and like Moon Road, that are going to be funded this year with that type of funding, but those are primary roads. So another shameless plug on my end here. Okay, so we have another virtual participant. This is Michelle. Michelle, you should be able to unmute.
Hi, thank you. You can hear me all right?
We can, go ahead.
All right. So I actually paid for new roads at my other subdivision, and I understand both sides of the story. There's advantages and challenges when you have to pay for them, and then I sold it. So what I'm trying to ascertain, I guess, is if there is damage done to the end of our driveway when they're repairing that, and maybe this was covered, I'm multitasking and taking care of my son right now too. Are we personally responsible for that, or is the contractor responsible? When you're doing concrete, it's certainly possible that that could accidentally happen.
Yeah, and our intention would be that if there's damage due to the contractor's operations, they somehow have been a cause of damage that could have been avoided, then the contractor has to take care of repairing that. So there may be situations where if the end of a driveway is in very poor repair, as they mill by that and try to pave next to it, sometimes chunks of the driveway will come out. In those cases, usually the repair is simply trying to place some hot mix asphalt in there to kind of fill the void. So we don't so much want to remove the driveway. That's not part of the scope of work that's been proposed here. But again, if it is an action that's taken, some kind of malfeasance by the contractor, something they could have avoided and they damage something, then that burden falls to them to fix that.
And it hasn't been mentioned, but we'll have an inspector out there. So we will have someone making sure that the work that they're doing is in accordance with the contract requirements, but also keeping an eye out at that if a mistake is made, because they do happen. The mill operator has been known like to a manhole, or maybe it clips an edge of a driveway. We can certainly address that and take care of that, and at no cost to the contract. If it's a mistake that the contractor makes, it's at no cost to the contractor, and we'll be sure to make them make amends.
It wouldn't add to the total SID cost.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right, so we have a couple questions in chat, so we'll knock out a few of these. So this comes from Lynn, and it says, how many days do we have to start that petition of reconsideration?
So yeah, the petition of reconsideration has to be within 10 days of the mailing of the final order of determination. So again, the intention would be following this hearing of objections, we are going to take this to the Road Commission Board at their March 15th meeting. So that's on the afternoon of March 15th, that this would be presented to the board as an action item. Should the board move forward with that final order of determination, there would be a mailing that would go out. And from the point at which that mailing is sent, there's a 10-day window for the petition of reconsideration to come back into the Road Commission to, I guess I'll say, pause the process and prompt the board, the Road Commission Board, to schedule another public hearing based on that petition of reconsideration.
And our intention would be to mail that the day after that board meeting.
Yes.
And then, yeah, mail.
So, yep.
So ultimately, if there is concern or pause for reconsideration, that should get started quickly.
Again, and these timelines are prescribed by the law that we are following in this process. Okay, let's do another chat question here. Lynn is asking, how much will the interest be if they go the bond, or if they go the repayment over 10 years route?
Interest rates, interesting subject and an interesting time. 5 years ago, we could confidently say between 2 and 4%, but I will not say because I do not know. If you're going to do a home equity loan, what would that be? It would be probably something similar.
Okay, let's see, this question comes from Alyssa. What is the process for formal objection? We just talked about that. It's up on the slides again here with that final order of determination. She says, I'm undecided on where I stand at the moment, but do we wait until we receive the letter from the county? And as Matt said, that if a petition for reconsideration is something that people are interested in, it's better to start that sooner rather than later, because we do have a very prescribed timeline. Again, we show it on the screen here, if that is of interest.
You need to get over 50% of the lineal frontage of the roadway. And again, as Aaron pointed out, if there's co-owners, they both need to be signing the petition for it to be valid. So again, I would encourage, if there is thought of that it be executed quickly.
Right, it doesn't have to wait until that final order of determination to begin.
Yep.
It could begin at any time. It just needs to be received within 10 days of that mailing of the final order of determination.
Thank you, Michelle. That was. Is there anybody in the room that would like to make comment? I think it's your turn.
Hi, my name is Steve Robinson. I live at 10390 Ridgeline Court. I moved in about 3 years ago, and the roads are how old did we say earlier? About 23 years old?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I guess one of my questions is, if they're supposed to last 15 to 20 years and we're at year 23, we're kind of at the point where we have to choose out of the 4 options, the most expensive option. I don't disagree that the roads need to be done. They do need to be done, I think. But we're choosing the most expensive option at the worst possible time you can do any kind of construction project. And I'm going to have to finance it. I don't have $11,000 just sitting in my bank account. So the last time an actual construction project came in at that $764,000 was never. It's not going to happen. It's going to be $1 million easily. The cost of oil has gone up, gas, that it's all factored in, cost of materials to the MDOT approved company's bids. So divided by 68 houses, that's $14,700. Divided by 10 years, and you've got interest on that. It all exponentially grows. So I'm 42 years old. God willing, I'm going to be in that house another 35 years. Am I going to have to go through this once, possibly 2 more times, to have to redo it at least at one of the 4 levels again and then again? So we've got 10 years to pay for it. We've got, let's say we have some harsh winters, and you got to assume worst case scenarios. We have to do something at the 15-year level. We have a 5-year reprieve and then have to go through this again and keep paying on top of it. And in the meantime, we get to enjoy nice roads. I understand that. But it just seems to be reactive instead of proactive. If the roads have to be redone, why not let the cost of things stable out and even possibly go down by putting it off another year, and we could be paying less for it possibly in a year. In the meantime, the markets are down too, so people's monies are down, so we're paying the most. When if you have money in the market, then your dollar is worth less. You've got another year if we push off the project to be able to recoup some of that while cost of materials possibly go down. If it's only MDOT approved companies, if I was the only shoemaker in a village, I'm going to charge whatever I want to. So hopefully it's, how many different companies are actually going to bid on this?
Generally speaking, there's a couple of asphalt contractors that will have an interest in the work, given the size.
Yeah.
But there is one company, Cadillac Asphalt, if you're familiar with the area.
Yeah.
They have plants in Washington County, and they do a lot of paving work throughout the county.
Yeah, but they know they're MDOT approved, so they've got a lock on.
There's other companies, absolutely. But
Yeah.
that's the predominant paver in our county.
Yeah.
Yeah, and good question, Steve. I mean, and part of the reason we require that MDOT pre-approval is so we kind of set a baseline that an
Quality.
expectation of the quality of the work they're going to
Yeah.
do, because to open it up to just any contractor that is able to do like driveway paving might not be the best idea from a workmanship perspective.
Or quality, yeah.
Um,
You raise great points.
Yeah.
Certainly, SADs are a great tool for financing large improvements. You don't want to go through an SAD and incur the administrative and bonding costs for crack sealing. It doesn't make sense. Oftentimes, you could mill off the top course and catch it, but the cracks that have already formed, and what's going to happen is you're going to pave that top course, and the cracks are going to come back. They're called reflective cracking. You'll see that on the county system quite often. So it's not certainly a perfect system where you do minimal preventative maintenance and then you get to the end of the service life, then you have to do something. It's not unlike a roof on your house. Ultimately, you buy the house brand new, in 15 years, you're gonna have to do something with the roof. That's throughout the life of, unless you decide to do a metal roof. Well, if you wanna do an SAD for concrete roads, we're here for you as well. But that cost is gonna be triple. But it will last 30 years probably. So that's an option, but that's not the option I think that most people would be palatable. So I hear what you're saying, that certainly an ounce of prevention can extend that service life, but financially there isn't a good model for SADs in the county system for preventive maintenance. That really the best advice I would have is do your crack seal. It's a very relatively inexpensive preventive maintenance treatment that typically an HOA can assess through their fees and see a good benefit from.
Michelle, do you want to, before we go to the next question, do you want to talk briefly just about the engineer's estimate? I know he had mentioned that the likelihood of it coming in under engineer's estimate is low with everything going on right now. Do you want to talk just a little bit about that?
Certainly. So while you're correct that we have based this somewhat on historical prices, we also know what's going on in the marketplace right now. And we know what some of the prices have been established for this year for asphalt. And so we feel relatively confidently that this is a pretty good engineer's estimate. We would not expect it to be substantially over. So your example of if we go from $750,000 to $1 million, well, that's going to trigger that over 10%, we'd have another public hearing and you would have the opportunity to then, put in a petition of reconsideration. So,
But it is a interesting time in Michigan where a lot of work is going on. You've got I-275 in the region. It's being reconstructed. A lot of resources are going to that. We're seeing higher bid prices. But we also have countywide work that we bid out on a regular basis that is in the economies of scale that we may potentially see a contractor saying, yep, we're going to get something close to what the engineer's estimate. That's what we're hopeful of. But there is always a chance that based on the current market and environment that we're in, asphalt prices go up. When I started in my career 20 plus years ago, asphalt prices were in the $40 range a ton. In this estimate, I think it's, what is it, $80, $84, $85 a ton. So it is a pretty high price, but we've seen it go higher on some cases. So it just depends. This is close to 5,000 tons of asphalt. So it's a good project. If it was 500 tons, it might be $100 a ton. So there's economies of scale there. So you've got 1.5 miles of paving. That's a good project. It's a good filler work in between big jobs. They can come in and pay for a couple of days and get in and get out. So I think this estimate's a good one, but time will tell.
Okay, we don't have anybody with a hand raised virtually, so there are instructions on the screen here if you do want to ask a question or make a comment and you're joining us on Zoom. We do have a couple more questions in chat that I'll get to. So this is just coming in from iPad 4. So I don't know who that is, but iPad 4. And just a comment saying no preventative maintenance seems short-sighted by the road commission and part of the problem with Michigan's roads overall. I don't think any of us road commission staff would argue with that. And we certainly know how to do preventative maintenance and we know what our roads need, but it really comes down to funding and what is available and what has been historically available. So we will not dive into the weeds of road funding because we could be here till midnight, but we are always happy to talk about that. Another question here is and this comes from Mandy, who votes on the reconsideration? So if there is a petition for reconsideration, can we talk about what those steps look like?
Yeah, and again, if the petition for reconsideration is filed within 10 days after the mailing of the final determination by the board, then the board would schedule another public hearing. There would be another mailing sent out at that point to inform the residents, the property owners of that additional public hearing. That public hearing would be held, and at that point, the board would make a final determination on moving forward with the project or not moving forward with the project.
right.
So
And as far as who's eligible to sign that petition, it's the same people who are eligible to sign the initial petition, which is they have to be the legal property owner. We need everybody who's on the deed to sign it, and it needs to be at least greater than 50% of the lineal frontage of those roads that we outlined.
Can you describe what lineal frontage is for the non-engineers, including myself in the room?
So
That means how much of your road, how much of your lot touches the road. So, it varies greatly in this area. Like we said, the cul-de-sacs, some of them's come down almost to a point. They have very little frontage. But other ones, a big corner lot is gonna have a lot. So try to get that guy to sign it.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
So that's what it is. And so when you add it all together, so when that petition came in, I was one of the people tasked to look at every signature and figure out how much lineal frontage is on that particular lot, added it all up and made sure that we were above that 50% threshold, which we were. We were at about 55%. And think about that, 66% of the owners, if you just took the number of parcels, 66% of the parcels signed it, but that only equated to 55% of the lineal frontage. So,
And the question was asked, who votes on whether it goes,
Right.
moves forward or not? And really, that's our board. Aaron had mentioned our road commission board will meet. We make a recommendation for the final order of determination after this meeting. then if we receive that petition and it does get validated that, hey, we do have a petition to reconsider, it's over 50, maybe it's 60%. In that case, we probably have a public hearing and our board, our recommendation would be say, nope, stop the project. Clearly, they've reconsidered and it's not time yet. So that's fully a potential, but it's our board that's really the acting body in this very legal process that votes and makes those resolutions that Aaron had outlined in the beginning of the presentation, that 10-step or 12-step process.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions for virtual hands. I do think it's time, the turn of someone here in the room. Is there anybody else in the room that wants to make comment? Go ahead.
My name's Greg Cool. I live at 47 Judd Road. We're not part of the subdivision. Our dirt drive that we had going to Judd Road was moved when the bridge was put in. So we've not really wanting to pay this extra money for, since our road was changed. We already pay to have the dirt when we need new gravel. We have that we have to contribute to do it ourselves already. So, and I'm on a big corner. I wouldn't want to have to pay the extra for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you.
Okay, we do have another virtual hand or virtual raised hand. Michelle, you should be able to unmute now.
Hi, it's Michelle Hahn. I'm at 146 Green Valley Drive. A question I had two, actually. One is follow up to the earlier question. What is the process for a homeowner to ensure that if the driveway is damaged, it's taken care of? Not that I don't believe that the contractors would, but just so we know who can we contact directly to make sure that it is, if that did happen. And secondly, I've heard mention of property taxes going up with the roads being replaced, and I want to make sure I understand correctly. Is that just in reference to if we finance and have to pay it over 10 years, our property taxes are more, or do the property taxes overall, if we were to pay a lump sum, get affected and go up higher than what is typically standard if the roads weren't done?
Thanks, Michelle. I think the contact person question would be to contact Aaron.
That's correct.
Yeah, and he'll
thank
be, yep, he's the hearing examiner and he will be he's our senior project manager for design and construction. So he would be the person if that was a concern, if there was damage.
Yes.
Do you guys want to talk about the second question?
Yeah, the property tax increase, what we were referring to is, again, the board, the road commission board has set the payback that can be over a 10-year period, and there would be interest incurred. So when we talk about that increase in the property taxes, the township would be collecting that additional money that would be due based on the improvements that would be made. And so if there's interest involved, that's going to increase the estimated cost as we referenced earlier in the meeting.
But if they pay a lump sum, they won't see an increase in their property tax after that lump sum.
Right, there would be a cost savings there based on the interest savings.
Okay. We do, let's see, and I have a chat question and then another virtual hand. Is there anybody else? I'll go to chat first. I'm getting lost track of whose turn it is. So let's see, we've got a question here from Lynn and she has her hand raised too. I'll just mention these and then we'll unmute Lynn. But she has questions about the lineal frontage for petitions and how are that's part of the petition process, but not part of how we're charging out parcels and how is that fair? And just some questions about that. And Lynn, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. You should be able to.
Hi. Yeah, so if you're using lineal frontage for the petitions, but you're pricing it out and charging everyone by parcel, that's not really fair. I want as much say as someone who has a large corner lot in terms of a petition, and I just don't think that that's very fair. How do you think that that's fair?
Okay, thanks, Lynn.
So when we're looking at the petition, it's both percentage of parcels, like are you over 50% of the number of parcels in the SAD that are saying yes, and what is the lineal footage? So it's both. It's when we're looking at a valid petition, you're looking at the number of parcels, is it over 50%? And then also the front footage. It's kind of a double check. And then we've talked about the fairness of what we feel is doing it by parcel is probably the fairest way.
And the petition, that's again, a requirement by the law.
Correct.
Yep, the requirements of how we run that petition. Okay, so we do have a question on chat from Alyssa. And her question is, since the county does not fund the roads, is it at our discretion to hire someone outside of MDOT certified contractors to do the work instead? In short, why do we have to involve the county when they aren't involved in the payment?
Good question. We can issue a permit for you to do the work if you'd like. Good luck collecting. That's really what it amounts to, that no one's gonna pass a hat for everybody put $11,000 into your hat. That's just not a reasonable way to go about it. If it was crack sealing, then, you know, obviously the HOA could assess it in their fees. Maybe your HOA wants to really jack up the fees and consider doing road construction. But this is the law. That's an option for financing major road improvements. It's an option. Again, we are not here to say it must be done. We're here because you've asked us to do it.
Okay. Is there anybody in the room that would like to make public comment? I think it's our turn in this room here. Go. Oh, can you go to the mic though, so that people can hear you? Yep.
I just have a follow-up on that property tax, while we were talking about that. Maybe some lemonade on the lemons. If the township is collecting it as a property tax, and I know that y'all are road engineers, not CPAs, but that leads me to believe that this could be claimed as a property tax on one's tax time.
I've heard that said, and I've heard that say, no, that's not true. So I don't know. I'm not a
Consult the
CPA.
tax attorney.
Yes.
You-
Not an
so you're-
attorney,
no,
I'm not
right.
a finance guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's property tax bill, so, okay.
Yes.
Okay, it looks like Lynn has her hand raised. Lynn, go ahead. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Is it possible for my property to be excluded from this, and how would that occur?
Okay, thank you.
Can certainly make that request. That was part of the process when
That's during the confirmation of the assessment roll.
Right.
It's when the property owners have the opportunity to come in and object to being included or to their contribution for the project. And
Yeah,
that's
I would
something
suggest
during
you
that
put-
hearing.
I would suggest such a request would be best to submit it in writing to the road commission. And really, it's the road commissioners that decide that or not. Will either grant or deny that request.
And in writing, we would take email, correct?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you don't have to write a formal letter. An email would suffice.
I'm also including in the chat a link to our online form where you could submit that comment, and that would work as well for that situation.
Sure.
Okay, I know we're getting close on, or we're getting close on our time here. So we do have another question from chat, and this comes from Steve, and he says, you've stated that 66% of the properties signed the petition. What is the actual number of properties that signed? Is it 44 or 45?
Oh, you know, I can get back with him if he really wants to know that. I just didn't happen to print out that particular spreadsheet when I looked at it this afternoon.
Steve, if you would like that exact answer, if you want to message me your email address, I can get that to Michelle. We will follow up with you.
Yes,
He would like to know, and he will provide his email address. so-
absolutely. I'll send it to him tomorrow.
Okay.
Just as a general note, any of the work that we're doing, you have access to. Under the Freedom of Information Act, we can make any documents regarding this process available to you. And it's a simple FOIA request, and you can get any of the information that you're hearing about tonight.
Okay, Steve, we got your email, and we will follow up with you. All right, I think I've gotten to all the questions in chat. Is there anybody else here in the room that would like to ask a question? Go ahead if you would go up to the podium, just so everybody can hear you.
Is there a way to tie in with other subdivisions in the same township that are also getting the roads replaced at the same time to bring the overall tonnage cost down?
Yeah, generally speaking, I'm not aware of any other special assessment districts under consideration right now. There is a potential to look at the work that we're doing on the county-wide system. Maybe looking at that contract as an avenue to see reduced pricing because the economies of scale. So that's an option if this does move forward. That would be something we'd make recommendation on. Yeah, absolutely. So if this moves ahead and we get that final order determination, we'll start that. Looking at that possibility.
There is a chat question that I missed. I think we've covered this, but if we want to just briefly, Alyssa asked earlier, can you explain the bond process and how that would apply to the payment of road work? And again, there would be another public hearing specifically about that assessment. Once, if we make it to that part of the process, there would be another public hearing that would talk more about who's exactly getting assessed and what that assessment would be. So I think that would be a better time to talk more specifics about that than tonight. And we'll bring along some more financial people.
Yeah, our director of finance would be involved. Oftentimes we'll have a bond attorney where they'll help us secure bonds for the project. So.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So I think, let me double check. I think we've gotten to all the comments within chat and we don't have any more virtual hands raised. So I think we can make a last call for anybody here in the room. Go ahead.
Hi, just a couple questions. I'm 43 Judd Road.
Okay.
Okay. We're not part of the subdivision. And again, the biggest thing that we didn't get is we never got any notification that any of this was happening until Washtenaw County sent the letter that said this was going to happen. To do a letter of reconsideration, right? Is there a certain form that has to be done, or can I just write down, this is a letter of reconsideration?
You're talking about the petition of reconsideration?
There's a petition that could be circulated to essentially reconsider moving ahead with this project. So that petition would need to be circulated. It's very similar to the petition that was to.
Is that a certain form that I would get from like
Yeah,
you?
we could certainly email one of us. We'll have contact information. There's cards in the back. We can get you what was used as for the petition to start it.
Mhm.
And you would use something similar, only the statement at the top would be to stop it.
Okay.
But there's the difference between petition to stop it, or are you also requesting to be excluded from the SAD?
Well, I'd like to be, excuse me, excluded from it.
Okay.
We don't, like the young lady that talked the very first thing, you know, we don't use your subdivision back here. My wife and I are both retired, fixed incomes, and you had $11,000 plus interest. You know, you're squeezing the heck out of us. But what we'd like to know is, how do I do this, or am I qualified? I'm not a member of their association or anything like that. So am I disqualified from?
No, you're in the district. So the district's been drawn. Emily, would you mind going up and putting the?
Yeah, no, we have, they sent one of those paper
Yeah,
stuff.
so
I have
if you've got a driveway that essentially accesses one of the roads that's going to be improved,
Yeah.
you're perceived of having a benefit.
Okay,
Because you're going to be driving on the new roadway. So
Is it
you're
a technicality that it's a private drive, or not a private drive? It's a drive that used to come out on Judd. And when they put the bridge in, of course, they told us, nope, you got to go out this way.
And that's
that-
where you want to put that in writing and make that request, make your case known to our board that you would like to be excluded from the SAD. That's different than stopping or trying to petition to stop the process.
Okay.
That's two different things.
So if I have questions when I try to write this out, is there someone I can call here?
Yeah.
Larry, right?
Pardon me?
Are you Larry?
No,
Oh, okay.
Ron James.
Oh, okay.
Thank
I
you.
couldn't figure out which one of the parcels there you were, so.
What am I, 42, I think it is.
Okay.
42, okay.
And there are, Aaron is our hearing examiner. Aaron, will you raise your hand?
Yeah.
Okay, his business cards are here at the back of the table and he'd be the best person to talk with.
Emily, do you want to put up the screen?
Oh,
that
yeah.
Shows his information too, for those that are online.
Yep.
You talked about the cul-de-sacs being all, or not the cul-de-sac, the culverts going through and stuff. There's definitely down on the corner where we live, like Greg's house is here and my house is here and there's a driveway between, up there on 42 and 45. All right, that floods out. And I know the land looks like it should run away. It doesn't. It doesn't run away. It runs into my backyard and it runs into Greg's garage.
That's something that we'll take a look at. You said it's
Yeah.
between 42 and 45.
Yeah, it's like after the cul-de-sac, 45 there's a big culvert that goes underneath the road. Kind of, it's not at a corner or anything. It's just up a ways. And it looks like it should run down this way, but it doesn't. It looks like it's running uphill. But it's not, obviously it's not. But there's those cul-de-sacs need to do something. I mean, we had to put a second sump pump in our basement just to keep the water out of my basement.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
All right.
Okay. I guess last call for anybody who is joining us on Zoom. Again, if you're joining us from your computer or smartphone, you want to look for that participants button or that reactions button and then click raise hands. Or if you're joining us from your touch tone phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. Okay, I think we've gotten to everybody. I think I will now turn it over to Aaron. The last thing I just want to mention before I do is that, again, thank you for your comments. Thank you for attending tonight. As a reminder, any additional written comments that you would like to be included in the board report about this meeting should be submitted by Friday, March 4th, 2022. A link is available in the chat. I just sent it a few minutes ago to the online form where you can submit your comments in writing that way. You can also submit them via mail and you could also email them, and Aaron's contact information will be provided in a moment here. And also there's business cards here if you're here in person. So thanks, Aaron.
And so the last step in the meeting tonight will be, I'll read the following prepared statement into the record. Per Public Act 246 of 1931 as amended, as the hearing examiner appointed by the Washtenaw County Board of County Road Commissioners, hereafter referred to as the board, I am compelled to read the following into the meeting record. The proposed number of annual installments for repayment of the bonds has been set at 10 years by the board. York Township's contribution for the improvements shall be pledging their full faith and credit as secondary collateral for the sale of bonds and collecting property taxes from lands benefited in the district during the life of the assessment. The board has determined that the remaining project costs shall be borne and assessed against the lands benefited in the district according to the benefits received. The board has determined that the assessment against the lands benefited shall be divided by parcel. Following this hearing of objections, I will submit findings of fact, including these meeting minutes and proposed determinations to the board, who may modify the proposed determinations and confirm the same as submitted or as modified, and order them placed on file at the Road Commission. A copy of the determination of the board will be served by first-class mail to each owner of or party in interest in property to be assessed at the addresses per the last local tax assessment record. The determinations shall become the final determinations of the board 10 days after mailing of the copies of the determination, unless a petition for reconsideration is filed as provided in this section. If the owners of record of more than 50% of the lineal frontage who were qualified under the provisions of Section 1 of Public Act 246 of 1931 sign the petition, desire to have the board reconsider its determination made under this section, they shall submit within 10 days after mailing of copies of the board's determination, a petition for reconsideration of such determination by the board. The board shall set a time and place of a hearing should a petition for reconsideration be submitted, and shall give notice by first-class mail to each owner of or party in interest in property to be assessed at addresses per the last local tax assessment records. At the conclusion of that hearing, the board may modify or confirm its previous determination. The determination shall thereupon be final. Okay. Again, thank you everyone for attending, both in person here and virtually. And as Emily pointed out, there's my contact information on the screen. Some of my cards are in the back indicating my phone number and my email if you have any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you all for your time.